One of the hardest things when starting a business is identifying your ideal customer. Our guest today is going to give you a great method to do just that, as well as tell you the 7 things that make every deal. If you want to better target your ideal customer, or get some tips, tricks, and tools to closing the deal, then you do not want to miss today's episode.
Welcome to this edition of Peak Performers Podcast with your host, Thor Conklin. Thor will be sharing the necessary tools, strategies, and psychology you'll need to become a peak performer in any area of your life or business.
Thor Conklin here. We give you the tricks, the tips, the tools, the strategy, the technology, and the psychology peak performers use in order to get more done and execute at the highest level. If you know what to do but struggle with getting it all done, or simply want to raise your game to the next level, this podcast is for you. Sit back and enjoy.
Today's guest is Jeff Koser, the CEO and creator of Selling to Zebras, a software platform that helps you better identify and target your customers, or zebras. Jeff also has 30 years of experience in business consulting and business creation, as well as business strategy, business development, executive sales management, and speaking engagements. Lastly, Jeff was the COO of Bond Supply Chain Solutions, a European ERP powerhouse which did $800 million in sales annually. If you want to learn about business development and identifying ideal customers for your products, boy, do we have a guest for you.
Jeff, thank you very much for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to this interview. As I was going through your bio and everything, Bain popped off of the list, and I was like, oh boy, these guys are smart. And I know if I called the Bain guys right now, they'd probably charge me about, $1,000 an hour?
So I wish it was Bain. It's actually Bond.
Oh! This interview's off to a great start.
Oh, I think that's terrific.
Oh, that's hilarious.
The energy associated with a laugh is one of the best there is, right?
So now I need to get some glasses.
Yeah, Bond is
Bond.
In fact, what you just did is exactly what used to happen to us when we were building Bond. They would say, when we would call, they would say, "Did you say Bond, as in James?" Or they didn't know what the name was, right? We were headquartered in the Netherlands, and nobody had ever heard of us.
Well, now we have. The world has heard of you guys. That's terrific. You know what? I think I'm actually just going to leave that in there. That'll be the blooper to start this thing off.
Well, I think it humanizes it, right? I mean, it's terrific.
It really does. Hey, Jeff, your book immediately caught my attention. Selling to Zebras, how to close 90% of the business you pursue faster, more easily, and more profitably. How'd you come up with the title?
So zebras are your perfect customer. So you're familiar with the Pareto principle, the belief that 80% of your revenues comes from 20% of your customers, 80% of your profits comes from 20% of your customers. And really Pareto exists in nature, but it really applies well to business. And zebras are your 80%ers. They're the 20% of the customers that really are your business. And we started calling a zebra because you can tell when you look at one that's exactly what you're looking at. So your best prospects, your best customers should be that easy to spot, that easy, pun not intended, spot there. See, get that? Huh?
I like that.
So back when I was with Bond, we called it the Bond Zebra. And it just stuck. It was kind of an accidental thing at that time, but everybody in the company learned what the Bond Zebra was. So from that time forward, we were always pursuing zebras, and we started challenging each other on whether it was a zebra for all the right reasons. And so when I wrote the book, it was just logical. That's who we sell to, so we called it Selling to Zebras. And it begs the question, just like you just asked.
And then, of course, the follow-up question is, how do we find those zebras? How do we define what our zebra looks like?
So what we did, we distilled that down into the 7 things that makes up every deal. So everything about a deal can be collapsed into, first of all, organizationally. where do you fit well? And we also define the anti-zebra too. Where don't you fit well? So you literally define from nothing to perfection. Organizationally, operationally is the second one. Again, where operationally, where are you not a good fit, and where are you a good fit? Where does it create differentiation? Third is power. Now, these are in strategic order. So power is third on purpose, because you want to make sure that the organization and operationally there's a fit before you work hard to get to power, who is the person that we say can buy even without a budget, no matter what it is you're selling. That's the simple definition. So if you're in the green, which we do, we score these. If you're in the green on organization and operations, now it's worth it to earn the right to speak with power. After power is funding. So funding, again, is in strategic order. It's fourth. Fifth is value/ROI. So can you build a business case around your solution and a decision to buy? Sixth is technology, again in strategic order. And seventh is service. So when you score those 7 together, you have, and we go from red, yellow to green on each one of the individual scores, and then the total score turns red, yellow, and green. So it just gives you a real simple, fast visual on where you stand with a deal, gives you a way to strategize it, and it gives the organization a go-to-market that everybody can understand and participate in.
Now, you've transitioned from for a better use of the term, brick and mortar operation into a technology company. What has the technology enabled you to do that you weren't able to do before?
So you're right. I mean, we used to have some pretty complex tools that were built in Excel, and it did this scoring I just described. And Excel actually built a business case. It would generate PowerPoint presentations and Word documents. Excel is a really cool application, but it was complex, and we were custom producing these for each client, so it was slow and expensive and very services driven. And what we did over the last several years is we actually put it in the cloud. We developed software around it. We made it so much simpler and easier that it's just faster to do it. It's less expensive for a client. We can proliferate the use, and so it's transformed our ability to help more companies, literally, because of the simplification and the standardization.
Bring us through a traditional or typical client onboarding process. What does that look like? Do they buy it online? Do you work with them one-on-one? Bring us through that kind of the cycle.
So that's a really good question. They can buy a single seat. A single seller can buy this and do it themselves. They can work with us. They can work with a partner. But when we sell it to a business, either our partner sells it and implements it, or we do. And what we do is, the first thing we do is we build the zebra. And how to do that is described in the book, but there's also a ebook out on our website that goes into even more detail on building your zebra. And usually it still takes some guidance. So we do that first, because then they have the business benefit of that really shortly after just 1 or 2 meetings. You spend a day on it with your cross-functional team, and you've now got something that can literally transform the thinking of your business. So that's the first thing you do. The second thing you do is you identify who are the key customers that represent that zebra profile you just built. So, here's the zebra profile. You built it based on some of those customers. Who are they? And whose power there? Now let's go talk to them. So you do a voice of the customer exercise, and we've got an ebook on how you do that as well. And you verify your zebra, but you also start to get stories from them, and you write those stories up, and you turn them into metrics-based case studies. And that's what we teach. We look for the metrics around why did they buy? Why did Power buy? What challenge did you help them overcome? What business problem did you address for them? What competitive differentiation did you create for them? And did Did you succeed? And what did that look like economically? So that we then have the raw material from that voice of the customer work for building a future business case that can predict what your solution can do for the next guy who buys. And then we create a process for proving that. We call that best practice use survey. So now you can measure, so let's back up a second. So you've got this group of business issues that your customers say you solve for them. What do the best customers do that brings the most value? And you define a survey to measure all other prospects against that best practice. Because if those are glaring business problems, they've probably tried to solve those. And if they've tried to solve them, they've probably somewhat gotten the business value. So you want to measure that and then determine the delta between what they're getting from the way they're doing it today versus what you could bring. So now your business case is really that closing that delta gap, and you're really able to quantify for them, should they move forward with you or should they stay with the way they're doing it today?
Now, so many businesses, some of the smaller businesses, the newer businesses, don't really have their core clientele together yet. They're really still trying to find their way. How do you help someone find their zebra when they don't really have enough clients to really determine what really is a zebra?
So you can still do it the same way. The difference is you're putting a stake in the ground now. You're saying, this is where my solution fits. This is where I should win. And you define your zebra based on where you should win, and then you go test it in the marketplace. And you pivot. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always screaming at clients, pivot, pivot, pivot. Keep moving, but just keep pivoting.
Exactly. There's a saying inside of the book, the Startup Owner's Manual. I love this quote from the book. It says, "No product ever survived its first encounter with a customer."
I like that. A couple of months ago, I interviewed a world champion adventure racer, Robin Benacasa, and one of the questions was, you're in the middle of a jungle, you've got another 800 miles to go, and you're kind of lost. You don't know which way to go. What do you do? She goes, just keep moving, keep adjusting. She goes, because what happens is if you keep moving, you now see the jungle or wherever you are from a different perspective. You may actually be on the top of a hill at this point. You may be in a valley, but things change when you keep moving. If you stop, then you don't have any additional information to make judgments off of. I thought that was really, really good. I was like, oh, we could use that in business. Yes. I want to drill down on this even more. It sounds like, in addition even to your customers, this would be a great way to talk to new prospects as well. If you know exactly what you're looking at, this survey, would that also be applicable to in the sales process?
That's another good question. This is exactly the way you sell. It transforms not just your sales organization, but it transforms your entire go-to-market, because now everyone understands which type of customer you serve, which is what a zebra is. When you start to sell based on a business case, you have to have your organization ready to deliver on it. Because if you establish an agreement that you're going to solve these issues, or you're going to create this competitive advantage, and here's how much economic value is attached to that. Well, now you have to have a proposal that allows you to look power in the eye and say, I've assessed your organization. We've done this best practice survey together. We know where the gaps are, including where your people gaps are in order to get this value. And our proposal has filled those gaps, again, including the people, the SME, the subject matter experts that are required. And we've made sure it was actually worth it to invest at that level to go get what you're looking to achieve. So your deal size usually goes up because in a credible way, you've collaboratively built a solution that they agree is what they need in order to get this value that they want. And then they're going to expect you to actually achieve it. So now your delivery organization has to line up, and they need to know culturally that they're not done until that account has actually achieved that business case. So it very much becomes the way you sell, becomes the way you deliver, and the way you talk about value.
So often the deals that we say no to aren't the ones that hurt us. It's the ones we say yes to that aren't a good fit.
Another excellent point. Saying yes in business is easy. Saying no is where the power is, though.
Yeah, and so many entrepreneurs and business leaders have a difficulty time doing that. So what happens? You're out there, you're hunting some zebras, and here comes a giraffe, walking along. It's got 4 legs, and it's got a mouthful of cash. Right? What happens? Sales guys go crazy. I know it's not a zebra, but look, it's got 4 legs. It's walking next to the zebra.
Yeah. So that's directly related to the question you just asked about yes and no in business, right? So that was a great lead in. So I'll tell you what, a guy who has passed away now, his name was Frank Watts, and he was actually trained by Bosworth, right? So the original solution selling guy, Bosworth, trained Frank, and Frank taught us that he used an analogy that I always loved. He said there's a guy who cleans. There's a RFP out there about they need somebody to clean water towers, and it's $1 million deal. They got $1 million. So there's your giraffe with $1 million in it. Now this is glaringly obvious because it's an analogy, right? So the salesperson wants to pursue it because they have $1 million. But we don't clean water towers. That's not what we do. So that's not our $1 million. That's not our deal. And so obviously you would it's easy to look at that one and say, well, then don't pursue that. But it's a little more nebulous when it's sort of in your field. But that's what the zebra does for you. It shows you on each one of those 7 attributes where you're strong and where you're weak and whether or not you should win that business. And in today's world, where most customers want to buy and try you, so the SaaS world or try you on a trial basis where they give you a small order, you have to make sure you fit and you can actually do what you say you can do and create that unique value for them, or you're not going to keep that business anyway. So it's actually less expensive to say no and not win that business sometimes.
I love that, what you just said. It reminds me of, trying. So often I think we get into the mindset of, okay, I'm trying to win this deal, and I either win it or I lose it. We either go forward for the next 5 years together or we don't. We walk away. It's so often if you just start doing some things for that customer, for that zebra. Look, for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to work with you. And if you don't like what I did after 2 weeks, no charge. We're done. Handshake. Best of luck. We'll part ways. But I want the opportunity to show you what I can do. And so often people just draw a line in the sand. I always said, my kids were growing up, I said, if you want to go work for Goldman Sachs, neither of you have the grades to get in. But they might have an opening in the mailroom or cleaning toilets. And once you're in the door, opportunities avail themselves.
That's very true, isn't it? I mean, you like you said, you might not have the credentials, and that's what the best practice survey is designed to do. It's designed to have a conversation like you were describing that allows you to show them what you're capable of and your expertise to shine.
Now, I'm a little confused. I'm sorry to say. Is the system? Is it a CRM system? Is it not a CRM system? I didn't fully understand that.
So you are a good question asker. This is so for a smaller company, it can be a CRM because it allows you to have accounts. It allows you to have opportunities, contacts. It creates a forecast. In fact, it creates the best forecast you can imagine. But if you're a larger company that's using Salesforce or you're using NetSuite or Dynamics, and you've got multiple departments using it, maybe your service department is using the CRM and maybe your billing department is using the CRM. We don't try to replace CRM. We just fix CRM. And what I mean by that is, and you probably saw my logo. I actually have a stamp out CRM in our logo.
Yes.
That's to create controversy, right? Because we don't really stamp out CRM. We're synergistic. We make it work. And the reason I say that is because you can't get good sellers to complete the data in the CRM that you need to run your business. I ask that all the time. of the sales manager, of management, of executive management teams. Can you get your best salespeople to fill out the CRM data you need to run your business?
No way.
No, you can't. That's the elephant in the room around CRM, right? And the reason they won't complete it is because it doesn't help them sell.
Right. And
you don't want to burden them with that. So who's filling it out? The sales manager is. Well, do you want them filling it out either? You really don't. Those should be your best strategists. Those should be the people that understand your go-to-market, can help you close in deals that move the needle. So what we teach is you have to have a platform, and we're actually a platform that you present from. So you don't just score these back at the office. You don't, at the end of the day, enter this information. We actually have you present right from the software, and the software generates presentations for you. It generates Word documents that you actually collaboratively work with the account on, and everything is already there. You don't have to go add it later. You don't have to change the date because you collaboratively agree on it with them, not only the close date, but the next step. You agree on what the dollar amount is going to look like. So it's all there. So when you're done at the end of the day, you're done. And then we integrate with Salesforce if they have that or whatever it is. And their CRM is also up to date. So now you're not slowing the seller down. You're actually putting something in their hands that they'll run to as opposed to running away from.
That makes so much sense. You know, it is so interesting with people that are great salesmen. It's the last thing they want to do is spend any time on paperwork. They're like a racehorse. Get me back on the track. I want to get out there.
And you want them on the track, right?
Exactly. Thank you so much for listening today. I really do appreciate your time, and I hope you found today's show valuable. If you would like to receive these shows automatically to your phone or to your computer, simply go to iTunes and subscribe. After listening to several of the shows, if you're so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating, as this helps us reach additional people and spread the message. If you're truly committed to taking your life to the next level and doing whatever it takes to become a peak performer, but something's holding you back, something is blocking your way, and you just can't seem to figure out what it is, send me an email to info@thorconklin.com, and I'd be more than happy to get on the phone with you. We'll schedule a 15-minute discovery call. No obligation, no cost. I absolutely love to hear from the listeners, and if there's something I can do to help, I'd be more than happy to do that. Also, if you found something of great interest in today's show and you want to share that with your friends and family, simply go to my Facebook page, Thor Conklin, click on the episode, hit the share button, and share it on your page. You can follow me at Twitter at Thor Conklin. The website is thorconklin.com. We're constantly adding new free resources, discussing additional tricks, tips, tools, and strategies on how to be a peak performer. Remember, I try to keep these episodes short so you can listen to them during dot time, doing other things, commuting, driving, walking, working out. Decide to be a peak performer in all that you do. And until tomorrow, have an absolutely amazing day.
Be on the lookout for part 2 of our conversation with Jeff, where he tells us why your business should focus on introducing a product to your Zebra as early as possible, and why writing a book could be pivotal for your company. See you next time on Peak Performers Podcast.